evening and welcome. Tonight we'll be going over the history and geography of Aden in Yemen. Now, as you can see on the map, it's not a very large place. I had to try to draw the lines since they're not delineated on this map, and I think I even made it a little too big. But the Aden Governorate is right here on the coast of southern Yemen on the Gulf of Aden, which is a very important waterway in the world because this goes up into the Red Sea and up to the Suez Canal to the Mediterranean, and this way goes out into the Arabian Sea and the Indian Ocean. So since shipping and trading began, this has been a very important little spot on the planet. And a quick pronunciation note, I know in most of the world it's pronounced Aden, so you don't need to leave comments or anything. But in British English, and I believe in American English, it's pronounced Aden. And I'm from America, so we'll just mispronounce it like we do with like zebras and aluminum and all of that. This is Aden in American English, but Aden is also acceptable. So, like I said, the history of this area goes back since trade over the water began. This little section was right smack dab in the middle between the trade with India and the trade with Europe. Ships would sail on through, send the goods up on camels over Suez up to the Mediterranean, and then ships would sail out this way toward the Indian subcontinent. And what I didn't mention in geography, why this spot in particular, not so much like over here, up here, even though these are major shipping centers, this is the biggest one, because there are two little peninsulas that stick out from what's now the city of Aden. The largest one was settled first. It's where the airport is, so it's right here. This was pretty much the village of Aden. It was not very big at all until recent history. But it was in a neighborhood that's known as Crater. And I'm like, that's the least sounding Arab neighborhood I've ever heard of. Why is it called Crater? Like, is it a Greek thing? Is it another weird English mispronunciation? But no, it is called Crater because the main peninsula here is an old extinct crumbled volcano. So the settlement is literally within the crater of the volcano. I'll show it to you on Google Earth after we go over the history. It's really beautiful. Expansion of the tiny little town of Crater out further into the mainland didn't really happen until about the 12th century. It was under the Persian sphere of influence at that time, and they kind of threw money at it to expand it. The first Europeans to be interested in the area were the Portuguese. They attempted to invade in 1513, and it went comically wrong, and they had to leave with like their tails between their legs. Everything that went wrong at that invasion went wrong, so they lost. And Aden just remained a nice little trading seaport for a lot longer. The British were the next Europeans to take interest in the area. They first landed here in 1609, but they didn't really utilize it until about 100 years, like 200 years later, when Napoleon invaded Egypt up there. And since the British were friendly with the people here, they used Aden as sort of a base of operations for the entire region, preparing for Napoleon to invade. And the people here were accommodating and welcoming of them. I mean, they were spending money, right? So, accommodating and welcoming. They weren't very hostile at this So the British Empire wasn't really interested in setting up anything here, but who was the British East India Company, because trade was going through to their regions over in the British Raj, British India, right? And they figured this would be a good spot to turn into a coaling station because ships were powered by coal. They needed to refuel. It's a perfect, like I said, a perfect little midway point. So it was not Britain, but the British East India Company that negotiated with the rulers here. At this point, it was the Sultanate of Lahej. And they agreed in exchange for, money and resources to cede the land over to the British East India Company. They developed on the other little peninsula over here. They called it Little Aden. And they turned it into the coaling station. It also became a big trade hub for them. They primarily traded coffee. This is when coffee became a worldwide thing because suddenly it was being spread all over the world from Yemen. And they also used it as a base to fight against pirates. Since all around the Arabian Peninsula here, there was an issue with pirates. And it sort of stayed that way until 1937. That was when the British East India Company no longer existed. India was being managed by Britain itself, and it was very clear at this point that India did not want that to happen. So things needed to be done over here. They had to figure out what to do with all of their extra land that was technically part of their India colony. So Aden became the colony of Aden. It became its own colony. And before, during, and after World War II, Little Aden turned into an oil refinery. And this is when the population really started to boom in the area. And the city really started to expand and develop once it became an official colony. And it became an important oil center for the British. But this was not to last, because soon the people here did not want to be part of the British Empire as well. There were lots of protests beginning in 1947, but it really escalated in 1963 when rebel groups were openly attacking British forces stationed in Aden. It got to the point where in 1967 the British had to abandon their stations. They evacuated all the citizens there. They basically grabbed everything and rushed out because the attacks became so violent. And this was known as the Aden Emergency. So they pulled out completely. Aden won its independence the hard way. And in 1970, Aden became the capital of what's pretty much known as South Yemen, or Southern Yemen, the People's Democratic Republic of Yemen. It had a lot of names. It was the southern area of Yemen here that was a Marxist-Leninist state. And I've said this a few times, but communism and Islam, in my opinion, don't mesh very well because one of the tenets of communism is no religion whatsoever, right? And that's not something that Islam's all about, it being a religion. So pretty much from what I've learned in my research in world history, anytime that a communist or Marxist-Leninist movement has sprung up in an Arab nation, it doesn't last very long because I think they start thinking a little bit harder and wait a second, this doesn't work with our beliefs. And that is what happened in southern Yemen. It was weakening while the north of Yemen was growing stronger. So the two nations unified in 1990 to just become Yemen. The capital was up at Sana'a, so it was no longer in Aden. I'm trying to think of a YouTube friendly word, instability of attacks from not very kind people and organizations began in 1992 in Yemen, Al-Qaeda being one of these groups. Most famously in 2000, a U.S. ship that was docked in Aden, the USS Cole, was bombed by Al-Qaeda. And to this day, Al-Qaeda, it's not like the Al-Qaeda, it's the Al-Qaeda of the Arabian Peninsula. They have a long name as well, something like that. They have a presence in Yemen, but from what I can tell in my research, not so much in Aden anymore. And we'll talk about why that is, because things got even more unstable in the country beginning in 2015. A rebel group known as the Houthis, who had always been anti-government of Yemen, were finally successful when the newer president, President Hadi, took power, and they pretty much steamrolled him. He had to flee Sana'a. He fled to Aden, the next largest major city in the area, and it was his hometown, so it's where he felt safe. And he declared Aden to be the temporary capital while Sana'a was overran by this rebel force. So you will see some sources saying that Aden is a capital of Yemen, or that Yemen has two capitals. It's Sana'a and Aden. Technically, it's still Sana'a, like on paper, it's still Sana'a, but there are some people who consider Aden the capital, the new capital, or the second capital. It's pretty much like depends on what side you're on. I'm impartial. I don't have a horse in this race because it starts to get a lot more complicated than the president versus the rebels, because a new group would spring up. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Let's talk about the Houthis real quick, because they launched a full-scale attack on Aden in 2015. It began in March. Let me check my notes. Yes, March 19th, when they attacked the airport. On March 25th, the Battle of Aden took place, full out, like an actual battle, running through the streets, not safe for civilians, all of that. The Saudis up here, the Saudi Arabian military had to come in July, and they managed to expel all the Houthis out of Aden during that conflict. But like I said, a new movement sprang up. It's known as the Southern Transitional Council. They are anti-Houthi and anti-President Hadi. They just want to be done with all of it. They have taken over Aden as of 2018. Checking my notes. Yes, they took over Aden in 2018. It's their capital now. There has been a lot of conflict between the STC and the Houthis and Al-Qaeda. It's so complicated in Yemen, you guys. There have been lots of battles between the two, the Houthis and the STC. It's still ongoing to this day, but from what I've seen in my research, it hasn't been really bad since 2020. From what I can see, Aden is a fairly safe little pocket in the instability of Yemen. And that is pretty much where we are today. You know, it's an important shipping center. They want to keep it that way because a lot of resources have become scarce in Yemen during this long conflict. It's been about, 8 years now since it began. And they want to be able to keep any kind of resource that can deliver goods and services to the Yemeni people as available as possible. So I know Al Hudaydah up here is a big shipping port, but Aden is the biggest, most important one. Let me show you on Google Earth real quick. Let me pull up my tablet, make sure it's nice and rotated for you guys. Here we go. So here is Aden. Let me zoom out a bit so you can see where we are in the world. Right there. There's Aden. So you can see we're on, oops, I went too far. We're on the Arabian Peninsula. Here's the African coastline. You can even see the Nile River here. Isn't that cool? The Red Sea, the Gulf of Aden. Here's Aden. Let's put let's do that so I can zoom out so you can see it on a global scale. That's where we are. That's where we're talking about. I don't think I've looked through this little slideshow. Let's see. This is just pictures of the city, but beyond the city there's not much. It's mostly just like rocks, and it's a lot of this. But as you can see, a big, beautiful, bustling city. Old ports, you can see looks like old dhows there. Old forts and things from medieval times, especially up on the craggy mountains. There are still lots of really cool old forts and castles. Ooh, it looks like a church, doesn't it? Oh, that's beautiful. There's even like, I think this is it. There's like a little boardwalk along the coastline. Oh, that's neat. Yeah, a beautiful little place here. So let me show you on Google Earth. So you can see the main peninsulas here. You can see there's Little Aden. Let's look at that first. Little Aden, as you can see, has some modern buildings to it. And let's find the refineries all up here, right? All of the petroleum and things. It was a BP processing plant for the longest. I believe it still is. The thing about Aden, though, is that we put on 3D. You can see some of these cool rocks. A lot of it was bombed by the Saudis, like I said, in 2015. A lot of it still has not been rebuilt. So there are just like random areas of emptiness because they demolished it and they have not rebuilt parts of it. Sadly, that's true of a lot of places in Yemen. There's another little island here. Look at all these cars. Well, they're not cars, they're shipping containers. Those are shipping containers. And then over here we can see a cool big volcano. Look how incredible this is. It's just a whole volcano over here. So this, you can see, is the town of Crater. It's pretty much today a big residential area along with the other side. A very large residential area on the other end of the cliffs here. Lots of beautiful mosques. Here is the Port of Aden. Let's see if we can get any good pictures here. The Port Authority, where the harbor master would be. Old buildings. And big cranes to lift all of the shipping containers going to and from the Suez Canal and all over the world, right? Look at all those. It is a busy, bustling little port. Always has been, probably, hopefully, fingers crossed, always will be. And let's look. Ooh, there's a cool lighthouse. I haven't seen this. Let's see if this is any good pictures. It's neat. Oh, it's cute. Looks like a fun little hangout place. It's where, like, you want to enjoy the breeze and you just go hang out by the lighthouse. That's nice. I was looking through this before, and the best slideshows that I found were up at the top here on this one. Boom. This one has lots of cool pictures. Look at the tides going out so you can play in the tide pools. Cool caves inside the old volcano. Look at this. The houses kind of remind me of San Francisco, where I grew up, how they're kind of stacked on top of each other on the hills, but that's where the comparisons end, the similarities end, because they're much older, cooler looking buildings around all of these beautiful rock formations from ancient times. Very, very old rock, right? Hanging out on the beach. Doesn't look like a great beach, but I mean, you need to go splash in the water. There's the water, there's rocks to sit on. Lots of bros hanging out. Oh, that's right, I forgot. Anytime I've tried to look more in there, it crashes Google Earth for some reason, so we'll stop looking at that. There's the cool Tawela Gorge here, which there's no pictures of on Google Earth. I've tried tapping it. Nothing happens, but isn't that neat? I found lots of ancient references about how it's always been like a place to explore and hang out. You can probably see there's lots of like camps, they call them. There's parks and camps. Of course, none of them are popping up now, but it's just always kind of been a place to just chill out and hang out by the water. You know, Yemen's a very hot, deserty place. There's not a lot of cool places to hang out, and Aden is one of them. Let's see if there's anything else we can explore. Look, here's the Southern Transitional Council building. This is their little government center here. I wonder if there's any cool pictures. Oh wow, that must be their flag. Southern Transitional Council. It's been rough going for these guys, but again, I'm not going to state my opinion on any of it because, like I said, I don't have a horse in this race. I believe in peace and love and understanding between everyone. So, yeah. There's this big, I think this is the hotel. There was sadly an unpleasant attack on that hotel by unpleasant peoples that YouTube does not like you to mention. Look at all of these. Isn't this so cool? It's just so neat to me that this is just a whole volcano just sticking out into the water. I think, if I remember, there are great pictures of this really cool fortress. I'll just show you this very ancient fortress. They believe that on the rocks there are probably more fortresses and watchtowers, but they've collapsed over time. There's the airport. Kind of like if you overshoot it, you're going off, right? Or maybe this way. It's a very narrow place for an airport. And then, pardon me, like I said, everything else is just kind of barren. See, like this is the border here. You can't really see. There's a camp there. But it looks like little farms and things. Let's pick one of these random ones. Let's pick a random park. See if there's any pictures. Probably not. No, I didn't think so. Campground. Oh. There's some pictures here of this campground. Oh, isn't that nice? It looks like a little motel, except they've got a pool there. And you can just swim on with the water slide. You've got swings. So many different swings. You can have a great time. Enjoying the nice weather, playing on the playground with your kids. Yeah, so as I was exploring Aden, I found a lot of these little, like, campgrounds. Like, it's not a campground like you think with, like, tents in the woods, because there's no woods here. Not a great place to put up a tent, so those are the campgrounds, right? So, yes, that is pretty much Aden in Yemen. We're going to end it here for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this kind of content, please consider subscribing because this is an ongoing series on my channel. We're going over every little bit of the world. Next, we are heading over to Turkey. I was just talking about an area over there not long ago. You guys really seem to enjoy that one. So if you've not done so yet, please consider subscribing so you can explore that area of Turkey along with me. I hope that you found this video relaxing and educational, and I hope that you have a very good night. Good night. Good night.